Okay, St. Olaves / Newstead homework 5. We've got a comprehension here. So, for question 1, I'm assuming you've read the text here. It says, Macau was once a colony of Portugal. Judging by the context of the passage, the event in the passage described happened at what time? So we can see here, the passage is basically talking about a tale that the elders of Macau will sometimes recall. And then the rest of this passage is basically that tale. So it says, in 1835, amid a cool January night, stuff happens. You can see a fire seems to start in a sense. It's more of a metaphorical fire. It says, as the clock struck midnight on that ill-fated night, the fire began its insidious dance, right? And you can see what it says down here. You don't have to know particularly what insidious means, but you can think about a fire beginning its dance. It says, Jesuit missionaries coming from the far west watched in despair as their efforts now ceased to exist. A symbol where East met West in a melting pot of cultures now lost, right? So you can see it says firefighters, despite their valiant yet fruitless struggle, were attempting to tame the tempest. And hour by hour, the grand facade of the St. Paul's Cathedral, an architectural masterpiece, seems to basically burn. So it isn't actually a metaphorical fire, my mistake. It's an actual fire that's burning the cathedral down. And it says, what did it say? Macau, a city that had thrived on the fusion of East and West, was in mourning. In years that followed, the surviving remnants of the cathedral would serve as a silent witness to that dreadful night. Now, so there's very few clues here as to whether this is happening during the colonization of Portugal, before or after, right? Now, the only clue here that we've got, so this is quite a difficult one, but if you see that Jesuit missionaries coming from the far west, so if you think about what a missionary is, it's usually something to do with like Christianity, right? And if they're coming from the west, that means coming from like Britain or like that sort of area, right? And what's happening is they're watching in despair as their efforts now cease to exist. So what are their efforts? Well, if they're building a church, right, or what probably happened is they built this church, right, or they're sort of spreading this religion of Christianity, and their efforts are now ceasing to exist because the church is burning down. And you can assume if the missionaries are still there, Portugal or Macau is actually still being colonized by the West, right? So option B is the correct answer here. We can infer, this is quite difficult, but we can infer that Portugal, this is happening during the colonization of Portugal. So if we look at question 2, it says in line 1, where it says, should you dare to inquire, what is used in this phrase? So we know what a hypothetical statement means. It's something, for example, where, let's say you give a hypothetical, you say, in the case that a fox jumps into my garden, that's a hypothetical because it's not actually happening. You're saying something that might happen. So it's nothing to do with that. Interrogative clause, so that means if you're sort of asking a question. Now, this isn't asking a question, so it's not that. Modal verb inversion, I'm actually sure what that is. You can look that up in your own time. Neither do I know what subjunctive mood is. But conditional inversion, so this is basically where you sort of say something that is conditional, right? So you say, like, I bet you haven't, right? Or like, sorry, you say, you, or conditional, it's like, let me try and think of an example. Yeah, so conditional is when you say, should you do something, right? Or, yeah, I think if you say, you should do this, that's conditional, right? Or should I do this, that's conditional. What in conditional inversion is when you sort of invert it and you say, like, the opposite, right? So, should you dare to inquire, it's sort of like, it's saying in a way that you shouldn't, right? It's trying to convince you not to. So another conditional inversion would be, I bet you haven't done that, right? So it's a bit more of a complex topic and you're not expected to know that, but with this one you probably have to look up these different phrases and stuff like that to figure out what this means. and then you could use that information to figure out this is conditional inversion. All right, question 3. What is the primary purpose of the author's description of the fire as an unforgiving inferno? So, where is that in the text? To be honest, we don't have to see it in the text. We can look at the options here and we can decide that it's B. So unforgiving inferno, that's just another way of emphasizing and like how bad of a situation this is. So inferno can emphasize how big the fire is. So an unforgiving inferno, it's like, oh, it's killing all of these people, or it might not be killing people, but it's just burning all of these buildings, right? It was burning this down like without forgiveness, without mercy. Now, if you look at any of the options, to downplay the severity of the fire, that's the opposite of what I just said. To indicate the fire did not forgive, it's not literally saying that the fire doesn't forgive, because the fire can't forgive. To suggest the fire was easily extinguished, again, that's the opposite of what I just said, and to emphasize the fact of forgiveness is the opposite of what it says right here. So option B, the only option that makes sense there. Question 4, in the passage, the author mentions that the fire etched its mark into the annals of history. What is the tone conveyed by this phrase? So, nostalgic means that it's looking back at something in like a good way. So if you think about maybe when you were younger, you might be nostalgic about being in, like, let's say year 3. Maybe you really enjoyed year 3 and you might look back at it in a nostalgic sense, right? That's what nostalgia would be. Angry, that's self-explanatory. Neutral and critical. Critical means you're willing to criticize it, right? I wouldn't say these really match it. So etched its marks into the annals of history. Again, there's no real anger there. I'd say reverence is the most best word to fit what tone it is. And that basically means you're sort of looking at it in like this big grand way. You think it's quite grand. You could say you look at it with respect, right? So etched its marks into the annals of history. Although it's not saying it in a good way, it is saying that it is quite this big grand event, right? So reverence. Okay, question 5. So based on the passage, what does the phrase East met West likely mean? So it says this here, right here, a symbol where East met West in a melting pot of cultures now lost. So what's happening here is it's talking about, again, the sort of Western people that have colonized Macau. It's saying a melting pot of cultures. So that's sort of like a good thing. It's saying there's this mix of the cultures from East and West, and now it's now lost because of the fire, right? So what's actually happening is it's the fusion of the different cultures in Macau. It's not a battle. There's no actual battle happening. It's a fire that's gone up. It wouldn't be a meeting of two races, famous marketplace, or a construction of a cathedral. This is the best option here. Option B. Question 6. In the lines 12 to 13, which language device is used in the phrase in a melting pot of cultures? So that is a metaphor, because the cultures aren't actually in a melting pot. Cultures are abstract things that can't be in melting pots. So the answer there should be D. Question 7. What does the author mean by taming a tempest with a mere whisper in the passage? Where it says that. So taming a tempest with a mere whisper. So if you tame a tempest, you're sort of stopping this sort of. If you think a tempest is like a whirlwind, and if you're taming it, you're stopping it, and you're doing it by just whispering. So the idea it's getting across is that you're stopping this massive event with minimal effort. So what would it mean in terms of the passage? It would mean option B, quelling quelling the fierce fire with minimal effort. Now this is what it means literally, controlling a storm using a soft voice. But option B is what it would mean metaphorically and what it would mean in the passage. So in line 16, what feeling does the word facade invoke? So it says here, by our a grand facade of St. Paul's Cathedral, the face of something. So the facade of the cathedral is like the front of it, probably like this. Actually, another word for facade actually is also, let's say you're acting like someone, right? I think that's probably a better better word for it. So if you're acting or you're pretending to be someone, you're pretending to be like this really confident person, but you're actually not confident, that would be a facade of confidence that you're putting on, right? So it's actually something that can be broken really easily, a fake thing. So what feeling does it invoke? It would invoke fragility, meaning that's like this big grand cathedral actually broke and got burnt down really easily. So it's a facade, right? That's sort of the idea of this. So that all comes from just understanding the meaning of facade. Obviously, if you don't know that, it's hard to do that. If you're doing this homework at home, these are quite difficult homework, so you can use a dictionary for these. They get a bit easier later down the line. Okay, question 9. In line 21, what is the synonym for somber? Could be used to describe the scene after the fire. So, somber, let's look at line 21 first of all. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So you can say somber scene of destruction, yeah? So somber is like, it's the idea that you're probably thinking about when, let's say you see your house burning down, you might feel somber once you've seen it all burn down. It's like this sort of melancholy gloom feeling. And pretty much I'd go with gloomy for that reason. Okay, question 10. What is the primary purpose of this passage? What this does basically is it's narrating a historical event that destroyed St. Paul's Cathedral. It's not really doing any of the other options. Question 11. Which two language devices are used throughout paragraph 2 to describe the fire? So, is it metaphor and personification? So paragraph 2, got right here. So let's look for the language devices that I use. So there's a metaphor here, I believe. Hold on. So the relentless devil vicariously devoured the wooden structure. So it's calling the fire a devil. So that's a metaphor. And the flames dancing. So that's a personification. So it's actually going to be, A and C, which is metaphor, and personification, which is option this one. All right, which two phrases from the passage do not have religious references? So you got sinister orange glow, unrelenting inferno, that ill-fated night. So fate, that is a religious reference. So like fortune, luck. Like fate means like what's destined to happen, right? So that's devil is also, and heavens is also. So it would actually be A and B, which is the only ones that aren't religious. All right. Okay, we're on to the maths now. Okay, let's start off with the maths. So question 13. Here are the prices of food and drinks in the cafe. Sally wants to buy one item of food and one drink with the least amount of money that she can pay. So if we look at the cheapest options that we've got for the food, it's toast, and the cheapest option we've got for the drink is 75p UT. So if we add those together, what we should get is 170p or £1.70. And in your options, that will show up as £1.70. So question 14, Grace plants a row of daffodils. There is a gap of 1.1 meters between each daffodil, and the row begins and ends with a daffodil. She has 8 daffodils, so think about there's a daffodil here, and there's 1.1 meters, and then another daffodil, etc. It's a bit like that. So how long is a row of daffodils when she's finished? So think about the gaps that there will be. If there are 8 daffodils, one is at the end, one is at the right end, one is at the left end, then how many gaps are you going to have between? You have 1, 2, you should have 5 gaps, I believe. Please count these out. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you can see the gaps here. Let me do it in red. 1 gap, 2 gap, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you got, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 daffodils with 7 gaps in between, and each gap is 1.1 meters. So if you just do 1.1 times 7, you'll get 7.7. That's how big the gaps are. Like how long? Yeah, that's how big the gaps are. So how long is a row of daffodils when she has finished? So we can only really say 7.7 because we don't have the length of an actual daffodil. But yeah, we're roughly 7.7. And again on the app, the answer option there is 7.7. So question 15. Add together the following and give your answer as a decimal. So if you want to give your answer as a decimal, you probably want to convert all of these into decimals. So 35%, anything with a percent, you just put 0 point in front of it, and that's the decimal, right? So 0.35. Now for 2/5, how you convert a fraction to a decimal, easiest way is to do an equivalent fraction where it has 100 at the bottom. So how do we make 2/5 have 100 at the bottom? We have to ask, how do we get from 5 to 100? We have to times by 20. So we times the top by 20, times 2 by 20, that will give us 40. And this is our fraction here, 40 over 100. Now that is equal to 40% or 0.4. So we've got 0.4 as our first number, 0.35 as our next number, and 0.604 as our last number. So if we add these all together, 0.4 plus 0.35 plus 0.604 will give us 1.354. And remember, when you're adding, you want to line up the decimals. So it'll be 0.4 and then 0.35. And you can backfill with zeros, so you can do long addition like this and you'll get this answer. Okay, let's move on to the next question here. Question 16. What number is halfway between 1.9 and 1.999? 1.99. So, halfway. If you think about what's halfway between 1 and 10, we can try and think about how do we actually find what's halfway between 1 and 10. Actually, an easier one. What's halfway between 2 and 4, right? So how do we find that? What we can do is we can add 2 and 4 together to give us 6, and we divide that by 2, and we half it, and that'll give us 3. What we're doing there is, it's hard to explain, but that's the easiest way to find the halfway point between two numbers is you add them together and you divide them by 2. So 3 is halfway between 2 and 4 if you think about them on a number line as well. You can try and think about this on a number line, but again, the easiest way to find this is you add these two together. So 1.9, you add that to 1.99, that will give you 3.89. Then if you divide that one by 2, it will give you 1.945, and that is your answer. Okay, question 17 now. Again, if you want to add these all together, you can either convert them to a decimal first and then add them, or you can convert them to fractions and then add them. I'm going to choose decimals because you can see the fractions here do not have the same denominator, so it will be a bit difficult to add them together. So we convert this to a decimal. You should know this is 1/4 or 0.25 or 25%. And this one anything over 100 is that as a percent, so this is 27%, or 0.27. So you have to be able to start getting good at converting between percentages and decimals. So this is what we've got. We add these three together. This is very simple. Again, line up the decimal points when you're doing long multiplication. And you should get 0.92 as your answer. Write this, question 18, write this as a decimal. Again, when you're making anything into a decimal, you want to change the denominator to be over 100. That's the easiest way, because then anything over 100, you can just convert that to a percentage easily and then convert that to a decimal. So how did we get from 60 to 100? Well, we actually, it's not times by a whole number. It'll be a decimal that we times by. What we can do probably is, first of all, make this bigger. So let's say it's 510 over 600. We times the top and the bottom by 10, sorry. And if we're able to simplify this and somehow get it to have 100 at the bottom, then we should be good. Divide both of them by 6, we'll get 100 at the bottom and 85 at the top. And that means our fraction, whatever this was, 51 over 60, is equal to 85 over 100. In other words, 85%, or 0.85. So that is the answer as a decimal. Alright, moving on to question 19. The plant is growing at a steady rate of 0.2 centimeters every day. At midday on January 19th, the plant has 6 centimeters high. What will the date be when it reaches a height of 11 centimeters? So it's a word problem. First, we'll figure out what's the difference between 6 centimeters and 11 centimeters. Well, it has to grow 5 more centimeters before it reaches 11 centimeters. How long will it take it to grow 5 centimeters? So we know it grows 0.2 centimeters every day. So it takes 10 days to grow to 2 centimeters. Another 10 days to grow to 4 centimeters. And 5 days to grow to 1 extra centimeter. So what was that? That was 10, 10, and 5. So that's 25 extra days that it will take till it reaches that height of 11 centimeters. All we have to do is add 25 days to January the 19th. So if we add, I believe, 11 days, 12 days to January 31st, right? And then how much is left? There's 13 extra days, so it will actually end up, if you count forward, it will end up with February the 13th is what we should get. So that'll be your answer. Alright, question 20. What is the missing decimal number in the list? So we have to figure out a sequence that's going on here. If we look at what's happening from 7.5 to 9.1, it's being added by 1.6. And from here to here, same thing, 1.6. So if we add 1.6 to 4.3, we'll get 5.9 as the missing number. Question 21. Gertrude, the goat, is walking around her rectangular pen. The width of her pen is this much, the length is this much. She walks around the perimeter of her pen 5 times. So all we have to do is figure out the perimeter and then times it by 5. So if the width is 2.3, we can add that to itself. So 2.3 plus 2.34, sorry. Sorry, I realised I was using the wrong microphone. Anyway, 2.34 plus 2.34 if we add that, this is also 340 centimeters, which is 3.4 meters. So if we find the perimeter, we just have to do 2.34 plus 2.34, and then plus 3.4 plus 3.4. And that's our perimeter, which is 11.48. If she walks that perimeter 5 times, we times that by 5. And you can do this in long multiplication, and it should give you 57.4 as your answer. Alright, question 22. A family with 2 adults and 3 children go to the zoo. This is how much a child ticket costs, this is how much an adult ticket costs, how much change will they get. So if they got 2 adults, it would be £9.50 times 2, which is 19, and then if you do £2.60 times 3 children, you'll get £7.80, and then if you add that together, you'll get 26.8, that's how much they spend, and then you subtract that from how much they paid, because you want to figure out how much change they got, right? So if you subtract that, you get £23.2 in change. So that should be your answer. Yeah, that was the end of the maths section. Let's move on to the verbal reasoning. So question 27. Oh, sorry, question 23, actually. For some reason it's not showing up here. Okay, verbal reasoning, question 23. Which pairs of words has different relationships compared to the others? So we've got here brave and courageous, happy and joyful, sad and cheerful, sharp and pointed, dry and arid. Okay, so if you see, all of these are synonyms to each other, apart from option C, sad and cheerful. These are antonyms, they mean the opposite thing to each other. Okay, question 24. Which of the following is an odd one out? So again, we've got swam swiftly, walked lazily, jumped eagerly, danced gracefully, and sang loudly. Now, if you look at the adverbs here, it says these are all actually, let's have a look at this. Yeah, I mean, I think the main difference here is all of these are like moving words. So you're making a big movement, you're swimming, you're walking, you're jumping, you're dancing, some form of exercise, right? And then singing loudly is a bit different. You're not moving your body in like an exercise fashion, right? So that would be the odd one out here. Question 25. He carefully planned the event to ensure success. Which word in the above sentence is an adverb? So planned is the verb, carefully is the adverb. Okay, three of the following words are represented by codes. Which sequence of numbers represents the code for lean? So if we look for the duplicates here, we've got one word here, one code here, which is 5 letters long, meaning it has to represent alien, which is 5 letters. So we've got ALIEN. Right, so N is equal to 7, L is equal to 2, meaning this should be 2, this should be 7. A is equal to 1, so 1 should be here, and E is equal to 3, so it should be 2, 3, 1, 7, which is option D. Okay, question 27. Alice, Bob, Chris, David, and Emily have consecutive ages. Emily is older than Chris, but younger than David. Bob is the youngest and is 21 years old, so Bob is the youngest. Alice is 1 year older than Chris. David is the oldest, so we've got Bob and David on opposite ends. Emily is older than Chris, so Emily and Alice are both older than Chris. The only difference here, we know Chris and Alice are next to each other because their ages are consecutive, is what it says here. So it should be Bob, Chris, Alice, this person, and then David. It's because Bob is 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25, so that works. So how old is Chris? He's 22. Option A. 27. So Question 28. Rearrange the words of the following sentence in descending order of length. So, which is the longest word? It's melodies here, meaning it would have to be option A, because it's the only option that's got melodies at this start. And that is the longest word. So, question 29. Arrange the words of the following sentence in descending order of the number of vowels that they contain. So this has 2 vowels. This also has 2 vowels. 2 vowels. Now this word has 4 vowels. So mountains should be first. So it can only be either B or A or E. And then it should be mountains, moon rises over, because these are in order, they're all at 2. And then it should be the. So mountains, moon rises over, the. There you go. Option E. Okay, question 30. Rearrange the words in the following sentence in alphabetical order of their final letter. So if we look at their final letter, A, this should definitely be first. So which one of these options has T first, or only A and C? Now what is next? E, A, B, C, actually D. This is the next in the alphabet. So cold should be the next word, so it can't be this one. And then you can see E, L, S, and T. So C is the right answer here. Question 31. Descending order of number of syllables. So magnificent, that's 4 syllables. Mountains, that's 2. This is 1, this is 2. Music, that's 2. So you should have 4. It should be magnificent mountains, merry music make, which is option A. Question 32. Oh, sorry, I'm a music make, right? So I missaw. Anyway, question 32. Which of the following pairs of words is homophones? So a homophone is when 2 of the words sound exactly the same. So C and C, bear and bear, here and here, or all of the above. As you can see, all of them sound the same, so it's going to be option D. Question 33, NVR analogy. So what we have to do here is look at how did this shape, this box turn into this box, and then apply the same rule to this one. So if we look at this shape disappears. So if we remove the same position, or shape in the same position, there should be no rectangle. So let's cancel out these 2 options. The next thing that changes is a grey shape, or the grey shape turns white, and the black shape turns grey. So these are both grey shapes, so they should both turn white, meaning option D is the correct answer. Question 34. This is rotated 90 degrees clockwise, so if we rotate this 90 degrees clockwise, we'll have a shape that looks either like B or D. Now what else happens is the white and the grey, they swap, meaning it should look like D. Question 35. This is rotated 90 degrees clockwise, so if we rotate this 90 degrees clockwise, this is incorrect. The heart would be having to face that way, and the triangle should be in this position, bottom left, sorry. Now what else happens is the black and the white swap, so these should all be black and they should be white, meaning Option C is the correct answer. Question 36. Now, these two shapes are removed, and then these two shapes are reflected across this sort of line, right? So if you remove the two shapes that are most to the left, which is these two, and then we reflect these, we'll get option A as our answer. Question 37. So what's happening here is the arrows are reflected. Actually, they're not reflected, they're flipped. So this one's going right, this one's going left. Up, turn to down, left, turn to right. So if we flip these, there should be a down arrow, should be an up arrow here, and it should be a left arrow here. So which one of these match? This one doesn't. These ones all match. Okay, what else happens is this shape gets rotated and made smaller, rotated 180 degrees. So this is not matching. And what else happens is we get a triangle here. So this shape comes to the outside. So we should have a trapezium, and it should be white. Actually, we don't know if it should be white. Let's have a look. Because this one swaps color, right? It goes from white to black. So this one should be white inside. And I assume the outer shape, the bigger shape, so you can see this small triangle turns into a big triangle. It should stay the same color, so it should actually be a black trapezium, which is option B, as our answer for question 37. Question 38. We've got a circle. This circle comes inside, and and then these dots, they go outside. So this square, if you can see this square, it should come to the inside, like this. And the triangle should go to the outside, but you can see what happens is it moves, right? So these come out, but the black shape moves clockwise. So this shape becomes black. So this is the shape that should become black. So top right corner like this. So option C is the answer for this one. Question 39. We've got these all stay in the same position, but this turns grey, and then these ones become dotted. So I assume what we should have is like anything diagonal to the black should turn grey, and anything on the same row as the black should turn dotted, which is option B right here. Question 39. Now, question 40. This circle, half circle, is moved to the top right, so it's reflected, so it should be like here, and it should also be swapping colors to black. And what else happens is we should get some sort of this square. You can see this semicircle, right? It comes inside, so we should have some sort of like white shape on the square. So I think I might have been wrong about this, but we do know that we should have some sort of white square here. So it can either be C or D for question 40. Now, what's probably happening is instead is this half circle, or the shape on the outside, is rotating to the corners. It's going clockwise, so that means this one should move up, should move here, and it should change color, meaning it should be option C. As you can see, it's turned black. Question 41. We've got the rectangle here. This one, so the top left shape goes to the middle, top right, bottom right shape also goes to the middle. So we should have a rectangle and a pentagon. You can see we've got C and D have matched that. Now, which shape goes to the outside? Well, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8-sided shape to the outside, because these two add up to 8. So if we do 4 plus 3, we should have a 7-sided shape on the outside, which is option C. This one is a hexagon. Alright, question 42 now. Last question. The A here is rotated upside down. So if we rotate this one, it's flipped, right? Vertically reflected. So it should look like this, I believe. Actually, no, it looks like anything with a tick is vertically reflected. So the D here should be vertically reflected like this. The L should look like this. And the M should look like this. Now it can't be that. Can't be that. It can't be that. So you can see the D, L, and the M. Now everything else seems to be reflected across a horizontal line. So you can see the C should be looking like this, F should be looking like this, and the K should look like this, which is exactly why this is the answer, option B. Hopefully that was helpful.